I'm Troy Johnson, joined here with Drew Toombs and Mr. Nix for today's version of TDN, our, we said weekly podcast, but turns out it's not so weekly. It's more like bi-monthly. But we're here, Super Bowl edition, Super Bowl on Sunday. Gonna, talk about it, do our thing. I'll lead off. The Eagles, surprising. Second-string quarterback. If you can even call Nick Foles a second-string quarterback for the Eagles. I personally don't think you can. But, Carson Wentz goes down. They finish 13-3. I'm kind of shocked to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I don't know about you guys.
I know they played Minnesota last week.
In Minnesota.
In Minnesota. Nobody even thought they would even make it out of there.
Yeah, Minnesota went up 7-0. The Eagles rattle off 38 straight and win 38-7. That's just –
well, even Minnesota shouldn't even have been in the in that situation if the Saints before that week would have made that tackle.
Yeah.
Make that tackle within, 3 seconds, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
You make that tackle, he doesn't score a touchdown, Saints are in the playoffs, and I think actually the Saints might beat the Eagles.
I think Saints-Patriots would have been the better – I think the Eagles probably would have been the third best matchup from the NFC.
Yes.
I definitely think the Saints or the Vikings would have been a better matchup for the Patriots.
Well, let's be honest. You're talking about the what could have been the matchup of the Saints and the Patriots. You're looking at Drew Brees, Tom Brady matchup compared to a Tom Brady, Nick Foles. So, the Eagles, their defense is tremendous. They are one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best. But the Eagles had, like you guys said, they had Carson Wentz for a large part of the season, which led to that 13-3 record. And, I just don't think that a lot of people are giving the Eagles much of a chance. I'm one of those. I hope I'm wrong because it's not that I dislike the Patriots as much as a lot of people do. I just don't like seeing the same people win over and over again in any sport.
That's what we were talking about.
And the Patriots, they're a dynasty. They've dominated the NFL for years, part of it because they're in a conference that's terrible.
Oh, yeah.
And a division that's terrible. But nonetheless, they continue to make it to the Super Bowl, and they continue to win the Super Bowl quite a bit. But I hope I'm wrong. I just don't see Carson Wentz, I don't see Nick Foles being able to beat a Tom Brady in a big-time Super Bowl game.
But now here's a question for you guys. If Carson Wentz doesn't go down, do you think they still either stay in the playoffs and stay in the Super Bowl or even just beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I definitely think they do. I think if Carson Wentz is here, the Eagles run through everyone. They have without Carson Wentz. Could you imagine them playing the Vikings with Carson Wentz?
With Carson, they would have had a much, in my opinion, a much better chance. My question regarding the Patriots, and maybe this is out there and I just haven't seen it in the news or anything, but what's the story on Gronkowski? Is he going to be eligible? Is he playing with that concussion?
That's another thing. I was reading up earlier, Malcolm Butler, I think Danny Woodhead, Rob Gronkowski, they're all questionable. Chris Hogan, Danny Amendola, they've all missed extended periods of time. You got to worry about Tom Brady's thumb. Is it 100%? He showed up in the AFC title game with, I think it was like 12 stitches in his thumb or something like that. But, even still, that's his throwing hand. You got to question. And, you're talking about how the AFC or the AFC East sucks and the Patriots win it every year. Since 2003, the only time they have not won the AFC East was 2008 when the Dolphins won it.
Well, yeah.
Every single year since they've won.
Just the teams in that division are terrible. And then when you look at the other teams in the AFC that – if you start saying, okay, well, who's been the second best team in the AFC over the past 10 years? Pittsburgh.
It's got to be Pittsburgh.
And how good is Pittsburgh? Are they ever more than 10-6 or 11-5?
But they're in a lot tougher of a division.
They are in a tougher division. That's true.
That's a whole different breed of football.
But then you start looking at teams like the Chiefs, who's my favorite team. But let's be honest, they're not one of the stronger teams in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And so the AFC itself, to me, is not a strong conference at all. And because of that, the Patriots have been able to dominate, and just being able to get to the Super Bowl, you're in a position to win one game, and you win the Super Bowl. You win it all. But that's not taking anything away from what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have done over the past 10-plus years, because they, like I said, nobody else has dominated like them, and it's because of those two people in particular. Although I think I forget the guy's name, the defensive coordinator for the Patriots wears his hat backwards, Going to be a head coach next year, I think.
For Detroit. Yeah, I'm blanking on his name right now.
But anyway, he's a tremendous coach, and it'll be interesting next year to see what the Patriots' defense is like without him. But you've got a Tom Brady who is not the greatest of all time. I don't care what anybody says.
No.
Joe Montana's got him beat, but he's one of the greatest of all times, no doubt. Nobody can refute that. You've got Tom Brady, and you've got Bill Belichick, who's probably one of the greatest coaches of all time. And you've put him in the AFC for the past 10 years, which has not been, in my opinion, very competitive at all.
Especially since Peyton Manning retired. I mean, that's the thing about the NFC is it's wide open. You know, you had the Eagles, you had the Falcons, the Packers are up there every year. They just had a down year. The Rams this year were up there. You never know who's going to win the NFC. I'm sure if you looked at it, except the Packers and Seahawks, 4 or 5 years back, I'm sure no one had went to the NFC title game consecutive times in a row. You look at the Patriots, and when's the last time they missed the AFC title game? It's been 7, 8 years, I think. I mean, it's just absurd the amount of success that Brady has had. Whether it was all legitimate or not, that's another big question. But it's unbelievable, the dynasty they've built.
And I think one of the funniest parts is that, to me, you look at Carson Wentz, who was a top pick in the draft, and you look at all these other quarterbacks who were top picks in the draft. We look at Tom Brady. When he was drafted, he was 199th overall.
7th rounder, yeah.
7th rounder. And look what he's become with Belichick and the Patriots in the past, 10-plus years. So, you look at all these other quarterbacks who are top of the draft of what they had. They had Carson Wentz, who was he, number 1 or number 2? He was number 2. And you have Nick Foles, who was drafted by the Rams, wasn't he?
No, he started with the Eagles. He had all that success with the Eagles.
That's right.
When they had Mike Vick.
I was thinking of Bradford, I think, or something like that. But he was with them, went to the Rams, was a backup for the longest time, then went back to the Eagles, and now are in the Super Bowl.
Playing for the Super Bowl. Another thing you got to, like you said, Mr. Nix, that Eagles defense, it just swallows you up. And it really goes unnoticed because – you have all these other defenses in the NFC. The Vikings, the Saints had a really good defense this year. The Rams defense is always really good. But, the Eagles, you look at their defense, they don't have a superstar on defense. They don't have an Aaron Donald. They don't have a J.J. Watt. They don't have, a James Harrison. They don't have anyone like that. It's a group effort with them.
Well, and they talked about the keys to how the Eagles could possibly win the Super Bowl. And it all comes down to what they're going to do with Tom Brady as far as putting pressure on him. If they're not putting pressure on Tom Brady up the middle, he's going to do whatever he wants. He's not a quarterback that's going to scramble.
No.
He's going to step up in the pocket, and he's going to fire the ball. And if you're not in his face and rushing him up the middle and putting pressure on him up the middle, especially with that thumb that you were talking about, then you're not going to have a chance. But if you can do that, if the Eagles can manage to do that, then it does put them in a position to be successful. So that'll be the interesting thing to see what it looks like coming up the middle from the defensive side of the ball, and if the Eagles are able to do anything and to keep them from scoring. But if you watch the Patriots year after year, game after game, if they go into halftime, in my opinion, and they are down by 3 touchdowns or less, I'll say, there's a pretty dang good chance that the Patriots are going to come back and win that game. You saw what they did last year in the Super Bowl to the Falcons,
down
which was
25.
Yeah, which I'm not in a position to say that if they're down 25 at halftime, they're going to come back and win it again this year.
Right.
But if they're within a touchdown or 2, maybe even 3, my money's still on the Patriots.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are not superstitious, but kind of look at stats from years back. Every Super Bowl from, I think it's in 2010 maybe, I think the last 8 Super Bowls or something like that have been number 1 seeds. And in the past, I think 5 or something like Super Bowls, the white jersey team has won the Super Bowl.
And the Patriots
are wearing white. So I don't know how you guys look upon that. It just shows that maybe that it's something superstitious, but
I don't think it's superstitious. I think that's just a coincidence. But, you're talking about rushing Brady up the middle. He's not going to scramble. Keep him in the pocket. You got to keep him off the field, too. That's another thing. You look at Jacksonville. Jacksonville had no business being in that game. None at all. I mean, you look at Jacksonville on paper, you look at Pittsburgh on paper. Pittsburgh's the much better team. You know, Jacksonville's led by Blake Bortles, arguably one of the biggest busts of this era so far. But they were on the field for 35 minutes compared to 25 for the Patriots. You got to keep them off the field. And I think Jacksonville wins that game if it's not for a couple of bonehead penalties. You know, the pass interference on A.J. Boye and the illegal hit on Barry Church. And, you know, it's just a couple penalties. That's what's going to do them in. They beat them in everything. Total yards, total plays. They were 25 short on passing. Possession blew them out of the water in rushing. Red zone percentage. I mean, same amount of first downs. They didn't turn the ball over. It's just absurd how well Jacksonville contained, I guess, that New England offense. And you really saw them kind of shut down, in my opinion. They were lost for a little bit after Gronkowski got hurt. But I think that's the biggest key. If the Eagles want to win this game, they got to keep Tom Brady off the field.
Let's not spend a lot of time on this, but let's play hypothetical for a second. Let's say that our Super Bowl was the other two teams. Let's say we had the Minnesota Vikings and Jacksonville Jaguars. Who wins and why?
Ooh.
I mean, that's going to be like a 13-10 game, first off, because, I mean, both of those offenses are just – they're atrocious.
Well,
but
who are your quarterbacks? We said Jake Bortles.
Yeah, Blake Bortles.
Excuse me.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum.
Case Keenum.
So, Case Keenum, a former Ram.
But, yeah.
Just like Foles. But, I mean, that would be your two Super Bowl quarterbacks.
Two mediocre at best quarterbacks.
Right, two teams that were one game away from the Super Bowl. And to answer my own question, I would have to, I guess, in that situation, go with Jacksonville just because how fast and young and energetic they were when I watched them play. But that's a tough one. That's almost a 50-50er to me.
I would have to go with Minnesota because, I mean, those two teams are almost the exact same team on paper, but just Minnesota playing in the Super Bowl in their own stadium.
They would have played in their own stadium.
Golly, could you imagine that? That would be – talk about home field advantage. It's never happened in NFL history. I mean, that would just be – Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, it all comes down to me, doesn't it? This one's kind of hard to choose. I mean, yes, they're both almost the exact same team on paper. But what I've seen this year, I would have to go with Minnesota. They, again, would be playing in their home stadium, which, I mean, you said doesn't happen. Has never happened.
Never happened.
And you're playing in your home stadium around, 50,000, 60,000?
Oh, I'm sure they'd pack that thing more than that.
Yeah, but
it's the Super Bowl.
I mean, you're going to be playing in front of your fans, not just both teams' fans. You're playing in front of yours almost entirely. So I'd have to go with Minnesota on that one.
I think it'll definitely be interesting. That would be. I mean, either way, I think this is arguably going to be the best Super Bowl we've seen probably since Seattle, New England a couple years ago, and that Malcolm Butler pick in the end zone. You know, that was a great game, but this one is just it's a toss-up. I mean, you look at the predictions, but they're both giving them almost a 50% chance to win. And, you know, this is the Eagles without Carson Wentz in the Super Bowl playing against probably, I'm going to say, the greatest dynasty in NFL history. I mean, look at them. They've won 5 Super Bowls. I mean, look at the win percentage. I'm sure it's absurd, but it's just –
yeah, it's got to be. If it's not the best, it's definitely one of the best up there with the early Green Bays, Pittsburgh's,
mid-'80s
Dolphins. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to reality here then. Pick a winner and a score for the Super Bowl.
I'm gonna have to go last on this one again.
I'll go New England. 27-16.
Okay.
Not bad.
I'll go New England 27-16, and I think I think I got to give MVP to Brady. He's going to ball out. He always does in the Super Bowl. MVP goes to Brady.
I'm going to agree with you on the MVP. I think that there's some talk there of this possibly being his last year. So if he has a decent game at all, I think that he's going to be the easy pick.
If he's usual Tom Brady,
usual Tom Brady, they'll pick him. Not only for that reason, but just because this will be his 6th Super Bowl that he would have won.
And they should have won 7 had it not been for that one against the Giants.
Right. I'm gonna do a little bit bigger of a difference in score though. I'm gonna pick the Patriots, and I'm going 31-7.
31-7.
Going with a blowout.
You're going with a blowout.
I'm going with a blowout.
I'm gonna go the other way. All right.
He's got to be that guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't just – no, I'm not doing that. Okay. I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go Eagles. Eagles win, but a little bit tighter of a margin, 34-31.
Wow.
High scoring. I mean, that's the Patriots' defense, though, is that defense. It's not good.
It's not, and it's
they're shaky.
They are. I do like their defensive coach, though. I think he does a good job. I think he makes a lot of second-half adjustments.
Yeah.
Because their defense tends to be a lot better in the second half than it does at the beginning of games.
It always seems
they
like that,
start
though.
really slow, it seems like.
Yes.
Well, last year in the Falcons, what were they up by 25 at halftime?
28-3.
28-3. So 25 at halftime, comes back, and did they score one touchdown or none in the second half? Falcons didn't score at all.
His final score is 34-28.
Yeah. So you're right. He does make a lot of halftime adjustments.
I think it'll be – I think whoever wins the first quarter will win the game.
Is his name Patrice? Does that sound
Patricia,
right? Patricia.
Matt Patrice.
Something
Patricia.
like that. Okay, yeah. That's something we should probably know, but everybody knows who we're talking about.
Yeah.
He'll be the Lions' next head coach.
Right,
And you know, the Josh McDaniels, their offensive coordinator, he's going to leave and go somewhere too, I'm sure. But I mean, I was reading something on ESPN earlier, and there's a new 30 for 30 coming out tonight about two Bills, the Parcells and Belichick.
I saw a commercial for that.
And it's just there's three head coaches in the NFL that don't have some sort of tie to either Belichick or Parcells.
Really?
3.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, here, I'll look him up. I know one of them's Andy Reid, but I mean,
Andy's been around for so long.
Yeah, he's been around for 20 years.
There's probably a lot of coaches now that have ties to Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think
Eagles
they
and
said there's
Chiefs and
5 head coaches that were assistants under Andy Reid too. I mean, it's just it's insane.
Well, Bill Belichick, when he was head coach, especially of the Giants, was definitely looked at as the best coach in the NFL. One of the best, at least.
Oh, for sure.
He was a fantastic coach. Moved on then to the Patriots, of course. But, man, when he had those Giants teams in I guess that would have been the late 80s, with Phil Simms at quarterback and Otis Anderson running back, Lawrence Taylor, one of the greatest defensive players of all time. Belichick was Belichick was an assistant under him,
D coordinator. I think so.
There's just between those two guys who have been around the game for a long time, if you combine the two of them, and I would not be surprised at all if there were a lot of head coaching and assistant coaching ties throughout the whole NFL. Was there 32 teams, something like that?
Yeah, 32.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid, some guy named Nagy, the new Bears head coach, and I'm looking for the other one.
And they were not good.
No. They were not good at all.
No, they haven't.
That's another thing. The draft coming up. You know, the Browns with the number 1 pick.
And the number 4 right now, right?
Yeah, number 1 and number 4. And they're talking about trading the number 1 pick and going after Kirk Cousins in free agency.
Well, they have not had luck drafting quarterbacks.
No.
And I don't know if they're thinking, well, let's not take a chance on a quarterback again. Let's go after somebody like Kirk Cousins, who's proven. But, man, the number 1 pick, that's Kirk Cousins for the number 1. I don't know.
I don't think he's really – I mean, Kirk Cousins, yes, has proven himself. But the number 1, like you said, I don't know.
Any of these college quarterbacks, I mean, they don't –
They're not special. They're not like
a friend. I'm
not
not
like
sold on
Deshaun
any of
Watson.
them.
They're not like those guys from last year.
No, I mean, you look at Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, you know, you look at all these guys and they scream franchise quarterback. I'm not sold on a Josh Rosen
Or Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield. That's the one I do disagree on. If I was the Browns, this is what I would do. I would trade the number 1 pick to a team that is really quarterback hungry. Like I'm Arizona, Jacksonville, someone like that. And, move back a little bit in that first round because Baker Mayfield's not going to go top 10. Does he have the talent to go top 10? Yes. I personally think he's the best player in the draft. But, you look at the off-field stuff. The attitudes.
He reminds you a lot of Johnny Manziel.
He does.
Not near as
extreme
as Johnny Manziel, but similar. I mean, even in stature.
Yeah.
And skill, he's very similar, and I don't know. The Browns are not going to take that chance.
No,
with Baker
they
Mayfield.
can't.
No,
They can't. Like they did with Manziel, they can't do that.
I think I disagree. I really think they could, and I think Baker Mayfield. I think he could thrive in Cleveland if he's given the opportunity. I mean, he's definitely gonna have. He definitely has some growing up to do. That's for sure. But I mean, that's I don't know. I'm not an NFL GM, so
yeah.
I like to think I am.
Don't get me wrong. I like Baker Mayfield.
It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh, it would be.
Don't get me wrong. I like Baker Mayfield and what he did for Oklahoma. I mean,
Oh my goodness. It's crazy.
Exactly. But at the same time, you also have to take into what he has done off the field. He doesn't treat like the players even said, they don't really like him much.
Yeah.
And just the things that he did off field. I mean, you saw on ESPN what he does on the field.
What he did to Kansas.
Kansas.
Flipping them off.
Kansas was like 4-10.
No, not even. They try like 1-11, 2-10.
Something like that. I mean, they were not good, and yet he's doing that to a team that he knew they were going to be. They were already up by like 30 or something like that.
Yeah,
so I mean,
telling them to go cheer for basketball, and it's just I don't know. But we'll have to do an episode on the draft. Probably towards the end of school because the draft's in like June, July, somewhere around there. I don't know. We'll do an episode on the draft coming up, but we gotta head out here. I think it was a good talk. We'll try it. Me and Drew at least. We'll try to be back on next Thursday. We'll try to get Mr. Nix again. No promises there.
We're gonna try and do this. We're trying to try and do it like every couple Thursdays,
every
or
week.
Every Thursday.
Yeah, at least every Thursday or every other Thursday is what
something
we're
like
for.
that.
But
just stay tuned in.
Yeah, stay tuned in. We'll let you know. I'm Troy Johnson here with Drew Toombs and Mr. Nix, and we will see you maybe next Thursday.